My industry is one of the STEM industries with the least percentage of women. I believe that when I started my career 10 years ago, the percentage was about 10%. And then if you add on top of that, the fact that I am orgullosamente mexicana or Latina, my percentage goes down to about 2%. So I'm often the only woman in the room. I stick out like a sore thumb, especially as I start entering rooms with CEO and leadership and executives. And I think we all have this shared experience of feeling like an outsider. So I'm not special. We all have this shared experience. And I just wanted to share my experience and how I deal with it, but not just how I deal with it, but actually how I thrive in a male-dominated environment. One of the biggest issues of being the only woman in the room is the constant feeling or the constant state of feeling uncomfortable. My primal instinct when I'm in a room made up of mainly men is to close up and feel a general state of unease. You know that cliche saying, get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable? I had to fully embrace that. If you have a higher self-esteem, it's a little bit easier to deal with this. If you have to work on it like I did, one of the best ways of doing it is similar to exposure therapy. Continue to put yourself in uncomfortable situations constantly to the point that you get used to it, to the point that you recognize that you're feeling uncomfortable, but it's fine. Another constant challenge is being overlooked or not being listened to. Eyes glaze over and people are nodding, but you know that what you said was actually not really absorbed or taken into account. So you have to learn how to command the room. There are strategies that you can practice to improve your presence in a way that naturally demands attention. For example, being clear, being articulate, and being concise. Don't just talk and take up people's time just to have a speaking moment. Make sure you understand what you're saying and you are providing value to the conversation. Otherwise, people start, not paying attention, eyes glaze over, and you start losing their respect. Another great strategy is learning how to slow down your speech and connecting with your audience. So whether that's by speaking out people's names or looking at them directly in the eyes and really learning how to read the room to know when you're starting to lose your audience. Posture and body language are another great way to command the room. Learn to take up space, look relaxed, feel comfortable, even if you don't feel it, fake it. For me specifically, I actually like to use my femininity and my Latinidad to my advantage. So I try not to blend into the corporate personality. So I embrace my openness and my loud personality that I have my culture to thank for. This actually helps me stand out and promote myself. Another very common issue being in a male-dominated industry is constant interruptions. People feel the need to interrupt me before I've even finished making my point. And I don't know if this is really something to do with being the only woman in the room or if men are just used to interrupting each other. Either way, you have to learn strategies to redirect the conversation back to what you were saying. You can do this naturally by saying things like, going back to the point I was trying to make earlier, or before we move on, I just wanted to take a moment to go back to that question that I was trying to state earlier. Of course, if there is a repetitive offender that is being disrespectful, we kind of have to hold our ground, be a little bit abrasive, and sponsor ourselves. Make sure that we are defending ourselves. It's honestly a constant battle, sometimes not really worth it depending on the subject, but I think it's improving. Another challenge I face quite often is thinking that I misunderstood something because of my background and thinking that I'm the only person in the room that's confused. This one is actually pretty simple to address, but quite difficult to take action on. My advice is to just admit it. Just be authentic and admit it. Do what you need to do to get yourself out of that confusion. I usually say something to the effect of, I think I'm confused, or perhaps I'm misunderstanding something. And then I go on to restate what I think is happening and what I think the next steps are supposed to be. 90% of the time I'm correct. And the 10% where I wasn't correct, the rest of the room had the exact same question. Last challenge. I've noticed that the more assertive I am and the more confident I am, the more I am met with aggression. Either I rubbed someone the wrong way or I came off as unlikable. And I think this is a common occurrence. Women are perceived to be more unlikable the more assertive they are. So this is where high emotional intelligence is very helpful. Usually I can read people pretty well, and I can tell when the aggression or the aggressive interaction is coming from a place of lack of confidence or low self-worth, or that I'm somehow threatening their role and they're feeling a little uncomfortable. That is when I make sure that I know that their behavior is none of my business. And I usually ignore it. And when I walk out of that room, I don't ever think about it again. Or at least I try. I really try to let my work ethic and my competence do the work, and hopefully they come around. And if they don't, that's fine. This week, I was in over 20 meetings where probably 70% of them had maybe one or two other women. And there was one day where I did not speak to a single woman the entire day. I was definitely missing the feminine energy, and I had to reach out to my colleagues that I was sure were having the same kind of day as I was. We all have our thing that makes us feel different or a little bit of an outsider, but don't let that stop you. And eventually, don't just pave the way. Open the door for those coming in behind us. All right, that's it. That's all I wanted to say about being the only woman in the industry or being in a male-dominated industry. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.